Hey guys, project-zodiac here. I'm back with another video, and as you can see, this is another movie review. This is my review for Disney's newest live-action movie, Snow White. And it's one that I just got home from the theater just a few minutes ago, and I have a lot to say about this movie. It has received a lot of controversy ever since it was announced, and still has some controversies even now. And in fact, I think a lot of people are saying that this is one of the worst of Disney's live action remakes. I don't think that that's the case. But yeah, so before we jump into the review, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. Um, this is going to be spoiler free. There's going to be a section at the end where I will talk about some spoilers, but I'll make that very clear. But again, my whole review is going to be here. Second disclaimer is I don't. So I can't really compare this to the original animated movie just because I didn't really grow up watching that movie a lot. In fact, a lot of the things that happens in this movie, or that, like the imagery for a lot of the things in this movie, such as the magic mirror or the evil queen, all of those I thought was directly from Sleeping Beauty. So a lot of the things in this movie I thought was from Sleeping Beauty, which I remember when I was little, and even now I still kind of prefer over Snow White. But again, can't really compare with the original, but I do remember a few things. Like the dwarfs, Dopey being my favorite out of all of them. The main plot of Snow White is in a enchanted forest. She bites the apple that a witch gives her, and she falls asleep. But Prince Charming comes and kisses her to wake her up. Before she bites the apple, I guess she's found by the dwarfs, and they just live with her, or she lives with him, or with them. But literally, that's all I remember from Snow White and the story. Just the main plot of what it is. So that's all I can really compare it to in regards to this. So I do apologize for that, as opposed to some of my other reviews for Disney live action movies, because for those I'm able to really compare it with the animated movie because I watched them so many times. Those animated movies in general. But yeah, so that's just the second disclaimer. And then the third disclaimer is I'm sorry for my voice. I was sick with the flu a couple weeks ago, but I'm still coughing and my voice is still really raspy, so I apologize for my voice. So with all that said, let's just jump straight into the movie because I have a lot to talk about. So for those of you that just wants to know what I think about the movie, it's good, it's fun, it's a nice movie, it's enjoyable, and it does some things really, really well, especially towards the end of the movie. But yeah, I think it's an enjoyable movie. I don't think it's worth the hate that it's getting, but there are some issues with the movie, but it doesn't make it a bad movie. It just makes it very questionable as to why they handle things certain ways, but it's not a bad movie. It doesn't fully take away from the movie. So it's a good movie. I just think it's getting a lot of hate, and it does not really justify the hate that it is getting. Honestly, a lot of Disney's live action movies get a lot of hate as well. But anyway, let's go now into a more complex explanation for certain things. So, first of all, let's talk about the sets. We'll go more into that a little bit later, but a lot of the set is very beautiful. The props, the costumes, the costumes are amazing. They're just so good. I love the way that the costumes was made. The props are done really, really nicely too. There's just so much done well with that aspect of the movie that is amazing. And again, it leads to what I just mentioned. There's a lot of questionable things in how Disney handled this movie. Oh, yeah, no, never mind. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So, the thing that I just remembered. Anyway, the filmmaking, the cinematography for it was done really well. There's a lot of beautiful shots, a lot of beautiful angles, a lot of beautiful compositions, and the color palette works so good. Like the first uh, 3/4 of the movie is very colorful and poetic with its colorings, you know, very dreamlike in that way, very fantasy. So I really like that. And then the last fourth, the ending of sections of the movie, it's a lot more serious and a lot more like the color palette's very more, you know, like gritty, and it's really impressive how they handled it. And it doesn't fully feel forced. I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit closer towards the end, because there's only one part where the gritty color palette did seem a little forced, but it worked overall. So I thought that that was done really, really, really good. The performances for, well, I mean, so okay, let's talk about first Snow White. Okay, for me, she's the best actress in this movie, and the well, in this movie, I know he's not a prince, but I guess you could say her boyfriend in the movie, who is the leader of the rebel thieves. He and that's another change. And yeah, there was, I know for sure that there's some changes that was made. Again, I don't know all of the changes. Really, the one that I know the most is, most likely that was the change, which really is that it's not a Prince Charming, because I do know for a fact that the animated movie was a prince. So for this one, it's not a prince. So that one I know for sure was changed, and I don't mind that change at all. So I think that that was done pretty good. Actually, no, there was one other change that they did that I do know for sure. I just can't say that one because that's a giant spoiler, even though it's not really gonna ruin the movie or anything, but it's a nice thing that happens. Um, but yeah, so those two are the ones that I know for sure was changed. Um, but yeah, so the actress that plays Snow White and the actor that plays the thief leader, both of them are probably the best actors in the movie. And yes, I know a lot of you might be thinking, how is that the case when there's Gal Gadot, I believe is how you say her name, playing the evil queen? Well, that's going to be one of my complaints. But there are times where she is very, very good. But again, we'll talk about that later. The rest of the cast, though, they're just kind of there, so there isn't really a big focus on their acting. It really is just mostly on Snow White. Even the dwarves, they have their own things and they're fine, but we'll talk about the dwarves in a little bit too. And then also, in terms of how the movie told its story, I think it was really well done. I think for the most part, it was pretty decently scripted. I didn't really have a lot of issues with the script. In fact, I can only really think three big issues that I really had with the script. And I'll talk about them during my complaints, because they're not technically spoilers. But I'm going to go further into detail with them during the spoilers section. So yeah, I think that the way that the story was written in the script was done really well. But I think they could have balanced some things here or there, and like shortened certain things to make a couple of other things make more sense, which lines up with the three complaints that I have with the actual script. But other than that, yeah, no, the script was done really well. Some parts did feel a little bit rushed, like Snow White only gets to know the doors for 2-3 days. Actually, okay, I have 4 issues with the script. Now that I just remembered another one. But yeah, it's 4 issues, but 3 bigger ones, 1 minor one. But yeah, she only like spends time with the doors for, I don't know, what was it, 2-3 days? Maybe 4 at the most. But the ending section of the movie makes it seem like it was much longer in a way. not necessarily because of her interacting with the dwarves. It's more of the fact of how the queen and the kingdom react to looking for her. It feels like it's much longer because there's, they send people to look for her. So it doesn't really feel like it was that long, that short, but it was. So yeah, I just think that they could have just tweaked a couple little things with the script here and there, but it's fine. It worked out. I didn't really have a big issue with it other than the four things that I'm going to be talking about now. But yeah, overall though, I mean, the songs were just okay. I think, again, I don't know all of the songs from the original. The only one that I do know parts of is when we first meet the dwarves and they're singing that song as they're marching. I just remember like the jingle part of it, but I don't remember the whole lyrics. They do have that particular jingle here. I just don't know if they reworked the lyrics for it. So I do apologize. Normally I would watch the original movie before watching this one, just to get refreshed with it, to compare it better, but it's been a busy week for me, so I wasn't really able to. But yeah, so in terms of the songs, it kind of fell into a couple of categories. Some were pretty good. I think there was three songs that I really, really liked and I thought was really well done. There was one which was about Snow White singing about wishing, and then obviously the dwarf song, and then Snow White and the thief leader singing a duet. That song I think was probably my favorite. That one was really, really, really good. But the rest was, yeah, no, like that song was really, really good. I really hope that song gets traction, because that song was really sweet and romantic. I think it was really, really well done. But the rest of the songs are fine, and then some are just like, okay, it's a musical, we just gotta sit through this one. It's not that it's bad, it's just we're letting them sing. And that's kind of been a little bit of an issue with Disney for the past few years, where a lot of their songs kind of just feel a little heartless or lifeless in certain parts. But they've been getting better. I would say since Encanto, because the music in Encanto, the musical aspect of it was really good, and it felt more like, the older Disney music that we all love. So starting with Encanto and then a couple other movies after that, a lot of the songs have been really, really good, but most of the songs in the Disney movies have been kind of this one was a mixture of three, the three that I said, like really, really good. That really feels like a callback to, those older songs, to modern Disney music, which is just okay, it's fine. And then okay, it's a musical, we're just gonna sit through this one. So this one kind of felt like that, but again, it doesn't take away from it, if that makes any sense. Now, we can actually go into my complaints. So, as I said, this movie had basically received a huge controversy ever since it was announced. Even I had some complaints with it ever since it was announced. And the two biggest things is the dwarfs and Snow White. We'll talk about that last, because that's going to be a bigger rant. Let's talk about Gal Gadot as the evil queen. Again, she is a really, really good actress. In a lot of movies she's in, she does a fantastic job. But in this movie, I don't think that, like, she looks the character so much when she wears, like, the whole outfit. It's really, really good. But for most of the movie, I don't know if it was her or if it was the director, or if it was both. But they kind of have her being super exaggerated, and a lot of her line delivery did not match with her tone or like her kind of role. I'm not saying that she has a kind of role, like for example, think of Johnny Depp. You would see his kind of role as like the weird kind of character, right? In a lot of movies, you wouldn't really see him in a lot of movies. That's not very strange, where the character isn't very strange. There's a few, yes, but a lot of the movies he does is the characters are very unique. Um, so I'm not trying to typecast her. That's what it's called. But and even if you are typecast in a specific kind of role, it doesn't mean that you can't do good in other kinds of roles. Again, Johnny Depp does amazing in many other kinds of roles where it's not a weird character. Same thing with Gal Gadot. She does amazing in many roles as well. But and she can actually be pretty menacing, and we see that as her as the evil queen. And so when they actually have her be menacing, like actually menacing, she does amazing. And then that's where you see, like, yes, she really, she's letting herself be that really good actress that she is. But those scenes are very few, because most of the movie, and again, that's what I'm saying, I feel like that particular direction that they took the evil queen in was just really, like, not that it was goofy, it was just super exaggerated. And I think exaggeration doesn't fit well with the way that Gal Gadot acts. And that's not a bad thing. Again, everyone does things differently in how they act. I just think that the exaggeration factor of the evil queen in this movie just didn't really work so much with her style of acting. But then when she was being allowed to be very serious, it was really good. And it's like, yes, now we can see why you were cast as the evil queen. But then most of the movie, it's her being super exaggerated and not very serious. And I just didn't. So yeah, that kind of took away a big factor of the movie. Honestly, there was 3 things that really, outside of the script, that really took away from the movie. One of them is her and the performance that she gave, because, like I said, her line deliveries when she was being very exaggerated just did not sound like, the way that she would normally say something. So I was watching when I was watching the movie, I kept thinking, this is almost like you are being a fake person, in the sense of, like, think of like the smart, polite person in school trying to be the bad guy, trying to like hurt someone, and they're faking who they are. That's exactly how the performance was. And it's like that, it was a bit annoying in that sense. It's like, it's because it just kept making me think, like, that's not how you are. Why are you trying to be like the bad person like this, with this huge exaggeration? That's not how you are. You're forcing yourself to be fake. In that sense, that's just thinking about how in school it was like that, with a whole bunch of people around. That's what it reminded me of. So she was super exaggerated and just kept saying things in a very like comic, like cartoonish way. And the way that she would move and her facial expressions, everything was just literally like so exaggerated that it was a huge contrast to everything else in the movie. Sorry. So, and again, because the movie knows when to be fantasy and creative and bright and shiny, but then it knows when to be serious. It does that so good in the last act of the movie when she bites the apple. Like, it did that fantastic. But unfortunately, with her, she kind of just stands out in that. So they didn't really balance the tone with the evil queen very well. And I think that was just my biggest complaint in regards to the actors, which was, which they should have just had her be a lot more stern and strong, like she is when she was mad or when she was serious. because there are times where even she's trying to be serious, but because she's being so exaggerated, it doesn't come off as serious. Again, I'm not trying to fully criticize the performance or the actress, because again, she is an amazing actress. I just think for this role, they needed to have someone else be that, if that's the direction they wanted the evil queen to be in, or they just needed to have her be more in line in how she could act her best way. And you know, it was one of the worst things in regards to the movie. But I will say this: you can tell that Gal Gadot is having so much fun with it, because the exaggerated nature that she does it, you can really tell she's having so much fun. It's almost like she's playing. I don't know if she has kids, but if she does, it's almost like she's playing with her kids. You know, like an imaginary story or something like that. And she's just having a really good time. That's how the exaggerated nature was. So I can't criticize her too much for that, because you can really see that she was just having a lot of fun. And yeah, I thought that was really nice, at least in that aspect. So that didn't fully ruin it, because I'm happy that she was really enjoying the performance. So, you know, that's good then. Then we can get on to the other big complaint that I have is, even though the outfits and a lot of the props are so well done, everything else, again, I have no idea what Disney was thinking, because I would say like 95% of this movie feels like it's just a green screen with really bad CGI and a lot of like blurry edges. I can get that the blurry edges is supposed to kind of resemble a dreamlike state. In some cases it worked, and then in other cases it's like, this is a very serious scene, why is that kind of blurry? But yeah, I think it comes down to the fact that so many scenes, even a sky, was just green screen. And I just kept thinking, I'm like, Disney, what were you guys doing with this? Like, you guys are Disney. I'm not one that normally criticizes CGI. I've said that before in other reviews. But sometimes when you know that the company can do a CGI to be very, very good, but they choose to not do that CGI good, it is very confusing depending on the type of movie. For this movie, for example, the animals. I forgot to mention, I loved the animals. The animals were one of the best things about this movie. They were so cute and fun. I loved them. The animal CGI is fine the way it is. It didn't need to be super realistic. Because, you know, they're pretty animated in a way, the way that the animals are. So I didn't mind the way that the CG for the animals was. But then for other things, like, why didn't they make the background more realistic? Why did they make the background look super, super cheap, as if it was a TV movie? Again, I'm not trying to bash on the CGI. I'm just questioning this, because this is Disney we're talking about. And when you compare them making the Lion King live action movie or the Beauty and the Beast live action movie, and then you compare it with Snow White, which should be just as impressive as those movies, because Snow White was Disney's first animated big movie. So why are they not putting that care in there? That's what I mean about the questionable things, where it's just like, what was Disney thinking in regards to this? And then even more so, why was Disney even putting everything to be CGI in this movie? It made no sense. Almost nothing of the sets felt like it was real, or it felt like it was maybe styrofoam or plastic. And that's another thing too. It's like Disney always makes such good sets. Even the Beauty and the Beast sets. I mean, because I'm trying to think now. Maybe they wanted to go for a fantasy dreamlike aesthetic. That's fine. But look at Beauty and the Beast. It's also with, you know, a castle, a village, all of these things, magic forests, all of that. So, but they put they made that town feel like a town, versus here it just feels like it's just a studio lot that they just quickly put something up. And so that's what I mean. Like, there was, again, I'm not trying to fully criticize it, it's just more the questionable aspect of, did Disney really want to put a lot of care in the movie, especially this movie, considering the fact that it's, they're a remake of their very first movie. Like, did they really bother to put the care in it? Just because I personally just think that Disney should have done things a little bit with more of a passion for this particular movie, because they did it in certain parts. Why didn't they just do it for everything else? Like, the costumes is one of the best for Disney, but then you have everything else around it, and it's like, well, the costumes look really good, but everything else looks like it's CG for a TV movie. Like the sky, the back castle, and it's like, why couldn't you guys just build something? Like, do something. Or if you're gonna go CG, make it better, because this is a very important movie for you guys. It's a remake of your first movie. You should put more passion into this. So in a filmmaking side of things, I was a bit upset about that. Because even in the forest, like, literally the only thing that looked a little bit real was like just a circle where the character was standing, and then everything around looked fake. Not all of the forest scene. There was a few where it looked like it was an actual forest, but or at least a set with a good forest design. But all of the other things, it was just literally just CGI, and I was just so confused. Why didn't they just implement, like, go to a natural forest to just film this? So, and again, I know that this isn't a thing that's exclusive to just this movie, because other Disney live action movies and other movies in general do this a lot. I'm just criticizing that a little bit more because this is supposed to be a very special movie for Disney, considering it's a remake of their very first movie. And it just felt like it had a little bit less passion put into it than other movies in regards to that. And we'll continue getting to that. So that was like the second thing not script related that really threw me to be questioning this movie a lot. The third thing, and this is in regards to the dwarfs, but we're going to leave that for last. Talking about the script things, let's go into those three things that I didn't understand. Or not that I didn't understand, but that they could have done a little bit differently. Again, this isn't really spoilers because this is just part of the Snow White story anyway. But for example, one of the biggest things is when Snow White is gonna bite the apple, right? The queen comes as the old lady and says like, oh, well, I knew your father, and I thank you for going to fight the queen. I can't help you, but let me give you this apple for your nourishment while you're going. That's fine. And Snow White was packing her things to get ready to go anyway when the evil queen appeared. But I don't understand why they just had Snow White bite into the apple right there, because the evil queen literally said, here's this for your travels, for your nourishment, I hope that this can help you. And there's no incentive for Snow White to just go and bite the apple right there. So that felt just really forced, and that's what I meant like earlier. They could have just changed a couple of things and to give it a little bit more time. Like, why couldn't she just walk away and then have Snow White get her bag, walk, and then as she's walking, bite it? Just giving it like 3 more minutes, and it just was not right there before she even leaves, and has no incentive at all to bite the apple. The evil queen wasn't even hypnotizing her. She literally just said, here you go, and she was like, okay, and just ate it. And that's supposed to be like the biggest thing in the movie, and then her boyfriend comes, kisses her, and then she wakes up, right? So like that's one of the most iconic things about Snow White, and they literally just did it so quickly with no incentive at all for her to go and bite the apple. Anyway, so that was one thing with the script that I really did not like. The other thing with the script that I really did not like is this particular one might be a little bit of a spoiler because I don't remember how this was in the original, so I'll just say it like this and I'll talk about it in my spoiler discussion. There's a moment where people go to talk with the evil queen, and yeah, so my two issues with the script is in that particular section. You think that there's gonna be a huge battle, and the way that the cinematography even poses it is just like this epic thing, and it's like for no reason at all. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the spoilers section. That's as far as I want to explain that particular one, and then the other one as well is on the way to talk with the queen. Try not to give spoilers for that. It's there's, I'm just trying to think. Hold on, let me think for this. Okay, I think I have a good way to say it without too much spoiling anything. The way that they had it so people came to their senses of how the evil queen was. Yeah, I think that that's the best way to explain it. With the help of Snow White, I think that the way that that was written also just didn't make sense. Again, I don't want to go too much into spoilers with that. I'll talk about that in my spoilers section. But now let's talk about my last two complaints, the dwarfs and Snow White. Except that Snow White is actually not a complaint for me. As I said, she was one of the best things about this movie. But what I want to talk about, the reason why I'm saying she's a complaint, again, she's not. The only reason why I'm having her on this list is to kind of talk about something from before the movie came out. So before the movie came out, and they announced who the actress was, me and a lot of people online thought that it made no sense at all. And the reason for that is because Snow White is supposed to be super pale. It's not the same thing as, for example, Ariel from The Little Mermaid having a different color palette for her skin, a different skin color. It's not the same thing as that. Because that, you know, it makes sense. She lives in a hot place, it's fine. I had no issues with that at all. The reason why I thought that that the skin color change was forced, again, this was before the movie came out, was simply because of the fact of Snow White's name and the reason why she's given her name. One of the last few things that I remember from the original movie was that she was called Snow White because of how pale her skin is. So that's why I thought that changing the skin color felt forced, because her name comes from the fact that she's supposed to be pale. And I didn't see why it needed to be changed, because again, her name is because she was supposed to be super pale. Pale as snow, white as snow, right? So I didn't understand why Disney decided not have her be super pale. But seeing the movie, they actually do explain why she's called Snow White, even though her skin isn't super pale. And the way that they explain it, it's kind of forceful. And so I guess that's my complaint. But at least they explain it, and honestly, again, when you see the movie, you even kind of end up forgetting it because the actress does such an amazing job. She's so good in the role and as Snow White. Like, I'm so amazed with the performance because she really did a fantastic job. And then as you're watching the movie, you just completely forget the fact that she's not pale as snow. You know, and you just go with it. So even though that was a complaint that I had before the movie came out. Actually seeing it in the movie and seeing that they at least did explain why she's called Snow White, for me it worked. I was able to get with it. But then actually seeing the performance, all the complaints I had was just kind of tossed away because the actress does such an amazing job, and really it ends up becoming a small little factor that, yeah, it kind of, you know, they could have just gotten someone that resembles the character's name a little bit more. But you literally, the actress does such a good job, really. Like, you end up just putting that aside because she ends up really taking on that role really, really well. So you end up literally just putting aside the fact of the name, and you just go with it, and you understand, all right, she's just called Snow White because she was born during a blizzard. And that's fine, you know, and you just end up putting that particular complaint aside very quickly as the movie goes on. So that's not a complaint. The only reason why I'm putting it here is just because I wanted to explain that thought process that I had as I was, you know, the movie was being announced and shown, and then actually seeing it. So it kind of shows that even though we as the audience might be thinking that something is controversial or, oh, why are they doing it like this, in the end sometimes it actually works out really, really well, as it did here. So again, no complaints with the actress, no complaints with her skin complexion being a little bit darker. Nothing, no complaints, no complaints at all, because she handles that character so well. So yeah, I thought that was really, really well done in the casting for her, and also for, again, the boyfriend role. They both did a fantastic job, especially as the movie goes on. Now, my last big complaint comes to the one that almost everyone had been complaining before the movie came out. And this one, though, is one that I really still cannot, you know, put this one aside. Again, the character name situation, I can easily just put that aside because they at least explain it and it just works with the movie. But this particular complaint I'm going to get into is not something that we could just put aside. And that is the situation with the dwarves. Ever since the movie was announced, I think soon after it, Disney had said that the dwarves were going to be CGI. And everybody thought that that was completely unfair and wrong. And I agree. Disney should not have put the CGIs to be dwarves. They shouldn't. They should not. They should have hired actual people, you know, who can play those roles to give them representation. Disney should 100% have hired people. There's so many people who can play those roles that, you know, Disney could have brought more awareness to. And sadly, they didn't. And that really upset me. And I think that my biggest complaint in the entire movie really was just Gal Gadot's exaggeration, everything being CGI, and the dwarves. But really the dwarves, because those you do spend a good amount of time with as well. And you can kind of get, you know, behind Gal Gadot's exaggerating acting in this movie. But with the dwarves, the way that the CGI is done, again, it's so bad. There was only one scene where the CGI, or two scenes where the CGI for them was pretty decent. But yeah, so the reason why they're a worse factor than the other two is because the CGI being bad affects them as well, and they're all CGI. And then because of the fact too that Disney should have hired people who can specifically play that role to bring more awareness to, you know, that group of people. And I'm really upset that Disney did it. And to make it worse, because I'm not going to go into too much of a topic in regards to this, but to make that particular issue worse, they did hire a person who can play that particular part, but they only hired one actor for that. And that one actor isn't even one of the dwarves that Snow White interacts with. It's, I don't want to say who it is. It's not really a spoiler or anything like that, but still, I'll just say that it's not one of the, the ones that we know from the show and that she goes to their house. It's not one of those. And this particular dwarf, the real one, even interacts with the CGI ones. When I saw that, I got so upset because Disney went out of their way to not hire people who could play those roles, to only hire and to end up hiring only one person who isn't even one of the dwarves that she should have been, and to further go ahead and kind of insult them because it has him, a real person, interacting with people who are supposed to be representing him as CGIs. And that was not cool. That was not okay. So I just thought that was really messed up and really wrong. And it for me, it's almost like they cast this guy just to stop people from complaining. And that was not good damage control, and that was not good representation. In my mind, as I was watching the movie, I kept thinking, oh, maybe the reason why Disney didn't want to go with real people as dwarves is because, it's Enchanted Kingdom with the animals that interact with people in certain ways. And, you see the dwarves having some kind of magic when we first meet them. So I thought it was that, but I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense at all, because they could have easily just put makeup on real people who could play those roles and still had them do magic things. So I think that was one of Disney's biggest insults, and a lot of people complain about a lot of Disney's insults in how they handle certain things. But I think that this one was one of the biggest ones, because they could have hired people to play those roles, real people, and gotten real representation out. And then they just don't. They go with the CGI, and to make it worse, they make the CGI dwarves interact with a real person who can fit that role. And it's just like, why? So those are my complaints. I think really that would make it kind of like just upsetting to watch a little bit. But does it fully destroy the movie? No. Especially since the real guy is not in there very often. He's only in for like 3-4 scenes, and it's pretty quick. Again, it doesn't fully destroy the movie, but it's something that I wanted to complain about. But yeah, guys, that's my review on the movie. It's not a bad movie. It's just Disney making some seriously weird choices with this movie when it's supposed to be something that they could have gotten representation for, a group that doesn't really get a lot of representation in movies. This would have been a perfect movie for that. They didn't. And then they insult that particular thing as well. And then the fact that the CGI and the exaggerated acting, and yeah, so there's a lot of things that made no sense in how Disney chose to handle this movie. But then everything else about this movie is pretty good. I really enjoyed all of those other aspects as well. So again, I still recommend people watch it. I don't think it's the worst Disney movie. I just think they handle things really badly as a company in making this movie. But the final product itself, like the script, the acting for the most part, and the prop work and the way that they balanced certain things was done really, really well. I just thought it was really, really good. Sorry. So I recommend watching it. Now, that's it for this particular spoiler-free section. I'm just going to go over the two things that I wanted to rant about in a spoiler way. But yeah, guys, if you're not gonna watch the spoiler stuff, please rate, comment, subscribe. I'll talk to you later. Let me know what you think of this movie. Now, going into the spoiler thing, so the two things with the script that that I think they should have changed is when Snow White goes into the castle at the end of the movie to confront the evil queen. The village people just kind of, and this is also where I said that the color palette felt forced, because every time we see the castle at the end of that movie, it's just very gloomy and everyone's depressed. But every other scene, everyone's happy and everything like that. So it's just like, whoa, why did you guys just quickly switch everything for how everyone is without us showing us that progression? So I thought that was a little bit forced with the color palette for that particular scene. Just the part where she's entering the town, because everything after that, the color palette worked really well. But my complaint isn't necessarily that in terms of the script. My complaint with the script for that scene is people, or her boyfriend makes a comment when he first meets her, like, oh, no one's seen Snow White in years, we don't even know if she's even alive. So that is very important, because that is part of the script. And when Snow White comes into the town at the end of the movie, everybody knows who she is. But how? That makes no sense, because no one has seen her for years and knows that she's the queen and the princess. So how is it that everyone just suddenly knows that she's the princess as soon as she walks in? Like, yes, she's the only one wearing a bright red robe, so yes, she stands out, but how would they know that she's the princess? Why couldn't they just assume she was someone else? And the script just doesn't explain that. Again, that's more of a super nitpicky thing, but really, even if I would be little, because I was thinking about that, even when I was little, I would notice things like that, and I'm just like, why did they do it like this? So I'm sure that even if I was little, I would be noticing that as well. And then the same thing with the other issue with the script that I have, which is when they show up, like the thieves and the dwarves, they make this big cinematic entrance for nothing. And I'm just like, why did the script have this? There was no point for the dwarves to go there. And they show them going in. They say that they're going to have a plan. They're going to, distract a couple people. We don't see anything. Literally, it's just Snow White walking in, the villagers following her, and then she just talks with the evil queen, and they kind of just do like a little show, and Snow White is just talking. And then they just, the guards decide to join Snow White. And then as soon as they do that, they show the dwarves coming in and getting a weapon, and and then shooting the dagger off the queen's hand. And it's just like, okay, there's gonna be a big fight, and it's like, no, there isn't. And then they just make this big boldy entrance. It's kind of just like, why did you guys do this whole boldy superhero kind of entrance right when you get in there, like you're the backup who finally arrived after the battle, like that kind of feeling, when you guys did nothing. We just see you go inside a cave, that's it, or the dungeon. And it's like, why didn't you guys just come in with her through the front door? Like, what was the point of all of that? So that's the other issue I have with the script. And then the last issue too, the fourth one, was really when the queen finds out that Snow White is alive. And she, sends people to go looking for her. So that's why it feels like it's longer than 4 days. But out of nowhere, when the queen becomes the old lady as a disguise, she knows immediately where Snow White is. How? Like, how did she know? There was no direction that points her to go to where the dwarf's home is. So that just made no sense. So yeah, those are the rest of the complaints that I have with the script. as well. But anyway, guys, that's my spoiler talk. Again, it's a good movie. It's a fun movie. Um, it's a enjoyable movie, even if it has all of these flaws. I don't think it's a bad movie or it's deserving of all the hate that it's getting, because it does some things pretty nice. It's really enjoyable. But yeah, there's a lot of things that the way Disney handled this movie just felt like there was no care put into it. And also kind of just a little disrespectful too. But yeah, guys, that's my review on Disney's Snow White. Let me know what you guys think. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good day.